often in life you're presented with a choice between what you want and what you can afford. Then you check your bank account, very quickly close the banking app, realize you're never going to buy a house, and buy nothing, is what I would say if we weren't all so obsessed with consuming. In reality, for a lot of people, what ends up happening is they buy the thing that they could kind of afford, but wasn't really what they wanted in the first place, and they justify this purchase to themselves through 10 rounds of mental gymnastics because either they had a bad day or a bad week or literally anything else, and ultimately they just wanted that instant gratification. Even if that purchase is made on a payment plan or even a credit card holding a balance. Then they go into a downward spiral of bad weeks, months, maybe even years, coping with it by just buying shit they don't need all the time, only to inevitably end up on Caleb Hammer's financial audit.
You spend $120,000 in a year, you dumb ass, making $30,000.
If you feel called out, good. That means in your heart, you know you couldn't quite afford that last big purchase you made, and you're starting to feel a bit of a pit in the bottom of your stomach form. So, as a bit of free advice, if you are starting to feel that buyer's remorse right now, return that thing if you can, and be more financially responsible going forward. Now, for the rest of you, I'm here to say if you're still, after all this, going to buy something anyway, be patient and buy the thing you actually want. Let me explain. You see, this doesn't apply to everything, right? It's heavily dependent on what the thing you're buying is, and of course, where your priorities lie. Like, for example, if you're at the grocery store and you're weighing up buying Nutella versus the generic brand hazelnut spread, 9 out of 10 times in this sort of example, you're going to be better off with a generic product than the brand labeled one. Usually, it's the same damn thing, made in the same damn factory, and all you're paying for in the end is a brand name and some marketing. But also, sometimes you just want Nutella, man. Sure, it's $5 more for a tub. But maybe the generic one just has this really weird aftertaste you get that you just can't get over. This is why I'm saying it's got to suit you and your priorities. You've got to pick your battles. And over the course of a whole grocery shop, sure, if you switch everything to a generic brand, yeah, you can save a good chunk of change. But one for one, that's up to you. Okay, snooze fest alert. I get it. We are talking about groceries right now. So now that example's out of the way, let's move away from the 1%ers in your life and start to focus on some of the bigger purchases. You know, like you saw in the thumbnail, nice, shiny, chrome, household essentials. Ah, gotcha. We're not at that part yet, silly. So you're moving out of your parents' basement into your own home. It's a bit mid because you spent all your money on that shitbox in the driveway, but that's alright because you can't race a house, am I right, guys? But now you've got an empty home and you've got to furnish it. But before even that, you need to buy the essentials first. Your kitchenware, a microwave, a fridge, a washing machine, a vacuum, all of these things that you'll likely need on a daily basis. Which brings us to another crossroads. What do you value? Are you going to buy some of the bigger and pricier electronics new so you have that warranty and peace of mind? Are you going to buy them used so you can get more value for money? Maybe you'll find some sort of middle ground at like a factory seconds outlet so you can get the best of both worlds. Are you going to buy one of those fridges with the damn iPad built in? Are you going to buy a 6-piece non-stick cookware set that looks aesthetic but is actually junk and will just deteriorate over 1 year? Are you going to buy a top-of-the-range Dyson because they're a huge brand name and have the little LEDs in the vacuum head that lets you see every single molecule of dust on your floor? Yeah. Once you do that, that knowledge will kind of ruin the 5-second rule for you. But more importantly though, are any of those purchases, if you buy something way more expensive, going to be real big difference makers for you? Can you justify the premium price they will cost? From my perspective, it's hard to see how the answer could be yes for a lot of them. But again, I've got to be clear, it's about what you value. Because one huge thing you need to consider before any purchase is if the more expensive thing is actually what you want anyway, or if it just kind of looks cool and you're falling for good marketing. Is the more expensive thing even any better than the cheaper alternative in the first place? A lot of people already know that a Gucci shirt isn't 3,100% better than a shirt from Uniqlo. It's not like the Gucci shirt is handcrafted out of gold leaf and made in a really particular cut with some sort of patented seam line that makes the shirt just drape over your body so you look like a Greek god when you wear it. It's not the case. It's just a shirt with a logo on it. That's pretty obvious. A lot of people should know this by now. But a lot of people won't know, for example, how much better a stainless steel frying pan is compared to their non-stick counterparts and how much longer it'll last you in the long run. They don't know that non-stick pans are actually a consumable item that won't last forever, and in the maybe year or so it takes for the non-stick coating to fade, or the second you get a nick or scratch in the non-stick coating, you then have to replace those pans because the coating is toxic. Yes, in case you couldn't tell, I am stainless steel's strongest soldier. They're fantastic, and cast iron is also a fantastic choice too. Literally changed my fucking life the second I started using these. But be warned, if you ever want to go down that route, you do have to take a minute to actually learn how to use these frying pans. It's not as simple as a non-stick. So with all that being said, again, it really depends on what you value. If you don't cook nearly every day like I do, you probably wouldn't give two flying fucks about how good a stainless steel frying pan is. And if you don't take your car to the track every day, you might be thinking, wait, is this all some really big elaborate setup for this guy to sit here and try and justify buying rep rims? The answer is actually no. The answer is actually fuck no. There's a few car specific things I want to talk about, but because it's in the thumbnail, let's just bite the bullet and talk about wheels first. Yes, I'm going to use wheels and rims interchangeably. If you've got a problem with that, you can like the video, subscribe for more content, and then leave a comment complaining about it, because your comment doesn't matter unless you're showing as a public subscriber. Now, I'm not going to go super in depth about the real versus fake versus rep wheel debate, because there are other YouTubers that actually work in the industry that have done a far better job at it than I ever could. But I am going to talk about it from another angle anyway. When it comes to wheels, fakes, and to a lesser extent reps, typically, and I use that word loosely, alright, I know it's not all the time, but typically will kinda look bad. I personally consider wheels to be one of the biggest draw cards and statement pieces you can have on a car. And if they're kind of ugly, well, it just ruins the entire thing for me. I'm going to go out on a limb and say about 7 out of 10 times you can spot a fake wheel from a mile away. And about 9 out of 10 times it will look worse than the original. Just how much worse can vary. And then if they happen not to look worse, it's very highly likely that they will be worse in some other respect. Because just think about it for a second. For a rep company to be able to put in all of the work and R&D and testing to create a wheel that looks as good as the original they're trying to replicate and be as good quality as the original they're trying to replicate, it would probably end up costing you the exact same to buy from them as the original would, if said company wanted to turn a profit and stay in business, which all companies do. So there's always going to be shortcomings somewhere, whether it be in weight, rigidity, or even just pure aesthetics. There's always going to have to be some sort of compromise. It's like the good, fast, and cheap Venn diagram. Just make it good quality, aesthetically pleasing, and cheap. It's super rare to find something that fits in all three. So again, you're gonna have to compromise somewhere, and it comes back to what you value. In this instance, the good one isn't gonna be cheap, and that's okay with me because clearly we found something that I value. Now, it might seem a bit rich for me to say that and talk all this stuff about real wheels when I personally have the cheapest real wheels known to man on my car at the moment. But A, I like RPF ones, so get off my dick. If you've got a problem with it, like, subscribe, leave a comment. And B, I've personally only ever really bought other people's nice wheels at a discount. I still value the good wheels, just not enough for me to have ever really justified buying them new, especially when they're so good secondhand. It's just right now, no better wheels than the RPF ones in the right spec have come up on Marketplace for me to want to have a look at. So for the time being, I'm going to be running RPF ones. Maybe one day I'll blow up on YouTube and have enough money to just buy shit new and not care about it. But today isn't that day. All right, so wheels are one thing. What else is there that I value? For me, some examples might be good, reputable and tested coilovers, good brake discs and pads, good quality fluids in the car, as well as good wheels and, more importantly, tires. Obviously, there are a bunch of other things, but essentially, to really put it in layman's terms, anything that I wouldn't deem purely cosmetic for my car are what I will spend the extra money on, and are the things that I feel are the difference makers in the way I drive day to day. So what are some instances where I wouldn't really want to buy the good one or the more expensive one? There aren't a lot of places I like to cheap out on my car. It's one of the few things I genuinely like to spend money on. But if I were to pick one thing for a daily, it would have to be the carbon add-ons. My front lip, side skirt extensions, and rear diffuser are all replica parts. Particularly my rear diffuser, which is very, very clearly Tom's inspired. Now, I didn't buy replica parts because I don't value Tom's as a company. I think they're awesome. They have a bunch of other parts like their brake pads, their strut braces that I really think I would value and like to have on my car. I bought replica carbon parts because I'll be fucked if I'm spending 10 G's on better quality, more functional aero for a car that I mainly just drive 10 minutes down to the gym and back every day. I'm not TJ Hunt, man. I don't have my money stacked like that. I've seen the Tom's kits for the ISF in person. They look good. I'd even say they look better, but 10 times the cost better for daily driving, where especially the front lip is just gonna get beaten to shit anyway. It's starting to feel more like that Gucci comparison at that rate. I know it's not actually, don't get too upset about it, but genuinely, you might feel the difference of a better quality coilover, lighter wheels, brake pads. Hell, even the Tom's brake pads probably give you slightly better performance that you will feel on a daily drive. But unless you're really pushing your car on a track trying to get better times, is functional aero really gonna be that much of a difference maker for you? It's not for me, and not for my use case. So in this instance, no, I'm not gonna buy the good one. Now, at this point is when you might start to question the ethical side of things. Some might say there is no ethical consumption under capitalism, and if you have a modern smartphone, you shouldn't be complaining about the ethics in anything you buy anyway. But what it really all comes down to, again, is what you value. Safety, perceived quality, genuine quality, performance, aesthetics, ethics. Any and all of these are valid points to pay a premium if you so choose. And when it comes to replicas in particular, they shouldn't and typically don't matter all that much to a company like Tom's. If it did, you'd be seeing far more cease and desists from companies like them and the likes of BBS and really anyone else who has all these imitators. The reason you don't see lawyers hammering down on replicas all that often is because these big brands know that the people buying replicas like me aren't the clientele for their parts anyway. Unless you're Street Hunter, low-key undercutting Ford, kinda, but not kinda, but kinda. That's a much bigger rabbit hole to go down, especially considering one product wasn't actually even available in the first place yet anyway. But to get back on track, there is absolutely no world in which I would spend 10 grand on a full carbon lip kit. Me and everyone else like me are not this company's avatar, so they simply do not care about us and what we're doing. If Tom's was the only available option out there, I would simply just not run any carbon bits. There is absolutely no world where I could just do the mental gymnastics to be able to justify dropping that much money on some carbon additions to my daily driver. And to be fair, the same thing applies to wheels. The motherfuckers out there you see running XXRs and rotors don't value what BBS or rotiform or work wheels have to offer. They just want a wheel that they think looks cool and is relatively cheap. They were never in this realm of the Venn diagram anyway, so they were never going to spend the money it costs to get a genuine set of BBSs anyway. It's just a completely different market entirely. Now, with that being said, you would also be right to point out my own hypocrisy, advocating for buying well-made versions of all of these other things and then just drawing the line at aero. Because fundamentally, I do think cars are their own art form, and I would pay the full price for a genuine Veilside Fortune kit, for example, provided I had the NSX or RX-7 to install it on. But I guess the way I justify that to myself is I followed Veilside for years, I like them and everything they stand for as a company, and there is not a single other thing like the Veilside Fortune kits out there on the market to compete with them anyway. They're very much in their own lane, and I fuck with it, and I value it. If I had a car that suited it, I would rock a genuine Veilside body kit. So yeah, I am kind of a hypocrite. I never claim not to be. But this isn't about me. This is about you. I want you to think more about how you spend your money and back products that you like and products that you care about with your chest. No matter which way you go and what you decide to buy, you need to own it. If you're too embarrassed to say you've got rep wheels or rep carbon or rep anything, it's okay to just admit, okay, it wasn't what you wanted. But if you looked at the cost and the value that these things have to you and came to the conclusion that they aren't huge difference makers in your life and aren't worth X amount of money, then you shouldn't be embarrassed. You'd only be embarrassed if you were out there not owning what you've got and pretending that what you do have is the real thing that you really wanted in the first place. This extends from Nutella to stainless steel frying pans to wheels all the way up to cars themselves. For example, if you really wanted an M3 but you settled for an M330i, you'll always be chasing that desire because you settled. But if all you ever really wanted was a fun BMW and the M330i wasn't some consolation prize because all the difference makers that make up an M car didn't really matter to you, then you won't care. You didn't settle. If you're always just gonna sit here and think, man, I really wish I got X, then don't buy Y instead. Also, another point. At the end of the day, it's up to the business to really show its value and its point of difference to you. And it's up to them to make their point of difference good enough to make you value their product. It is also up to you to do your own research to see if this point of difference is just a bit of marketing fluff or something you actually value. This applies to literally any consumer good you can think of buying, so please, for the love of God, if you ever have like 5-10 minutes before you decide you want to buy something, do a little bit of research. Just a YouTube video comparing things that isn't made by one of the companies trying to sell you this thing or sponsored by a competitor or something, or even just browsing through a couple of Reddit threads can really help you make a more educated choice than literally doing no research. Okay, so yes, this has all become a lot more complicated than just buying the more expensive option of what you were looking at getting at any given point. There's very clearly layers to this, and it is going to change depending on your own personal circumstances and priorities. The biggest thing I just wanted to get across to you though is just to not fall into the trap of needless consumerism and put a little more thought into where you spend your money. With advertisements being shoved down our throats at alarming rates, we've all suddenly got a lot of wants. A lot of these impulses for instant gratification that we really need to try and put under control. Which is why I don't have any sponsor segments in this video. Not because no brands have ever reached out to me and I don't know how to reach out to them. That's not the case at all. If you've watched this far into the video, good job. Your attention span is healing. Don't worry though, we're almost done, so you can go back to scrolling reels soon. But if you've watched this far, I know you. You're clearly a car enthusiast just like I am. And like me, you are gonna buy car parts at some point. Nothing and no one will stop you. Just trust me when I say you're best off waiting for what you want and what you can afford to line up. Once you've done all the mental gymnastics and the justifications and finally figured out exactly what it is that you want, if it is something that's truly out of your price range, take the time to save for it. The beauty of saving for things you actually want is it takes out that element of impulse purchasing. From the little to the mid to the big purchases, if you've got to save for something, every single other unnecessary purchase that you make should be seen as a setback from that goal. Like, yeah, I could go get Macca's tonight, but right now, that's pushing nearly $20 for a decent sized meal. And I do have food at home. So if I skip it, that's $20 that I can now put towards the thing that I want. Let's just say that thing is new coilovers. Then you compound that mentality over multiple needless purchases varying in price over a couple of months, and suddenly you can now afford those coilovers you wanted without any of the credit card debt. Plus, as those months go by, you've only got two positive outcomes. There is no downside. Either A, you save the money and buy the thing you wanted in the first place. Sick, you've got no buyer's remorse, no wishing you got something else, just the thing. Or B, because you slept on it a bit, you came to realize you didn't actually want that thing quite as much as you first thought. And now that you've had the time to think about it, you just don't buy it. And now you've just got some extra savings to play with. Both of these outcomes are just far, far, far better options than impulse purchasing. You also get the sheer euphoria of delayed gratification, something that so many of us aren't quite as used to anymore. And trust me, it feels so good, man. I spent about 8 years from the age of 16 to 24 in my base model 2007 Subaru Impreza. Before I sold that and moved into my ISF in 2023, which I bought outright with cash. A few years after buying a house with my wife, that wasn't outright with cash. Come on, who do you think I am? I already told you I'm not TJ Hunt. I don't have my bag stacked like that. That's not supposed to be some flex or humble brag or anything like that. Like, full transparency, I did get to live rent-free with my single mother for years to be able to save up for a house deposit, which is such a huge leg up compared to some. My point is, that is just one example of delayed gratification at its largest scale and an example of doing shit in a more productive order. If I went out and got a loan for a WRX at 20 years old like I wanted to and planned to do since I was 16 and first got my license, I never would have been in this position. I also would have just wished I could have bought an STI anyway. That was always the real goal. The WRX was always a consolation prize in my mind, and I couldn't even afford that at the time anyway. I needed a loan. Now, I've got a car that I enjoy far more than the WRX, and none of the regret to go with it. Because not only was that not the car I was striving for, if I got that car, having that personal loan over my head likely would have caused me to miss my one opportunity to get a house before prices just absolutely skyrocketed over the last couple of years. One choice, one decision to opt out of a purchase I told myself I was going to do since I was 16 changed the whole trajectory of my life. That's super scary and daunting to think about. I don't want you to think every decision is going to be that daunting and have that many ripple effects or be that life-changing, because it's not, all right? Try not to overthink the really little things. That one takeaway coffee isn't going to butterfly affect you into a whole different timeline where you get to live out your best and wildest dreams, unless you skip it and miss out on meeting your future wife at that coffee shop, because no, she's not just doing a job, man. She's not just being polite. She wants you, bro. My point with all this is to take your time. Do yourself a favor. Don't take the shortcut. Be patient. Do a little bit of research. Sleep on it even. And if after everything you've still found the more expensive option is what you want, if you're set on spending the money regardless, you've justified to yourself that you need this thing in some way, shape, or form. You value it, and it's a difference maker to you, then yes, you can and should give yourself permission to buy that jar of Nutella over the generic brand. Life's short. Enjoy the little things, but sometimes, and I really hope you're listening here because this is probably one of the most important parts of the video. Sometimes, instead of buying something, it's good to recognize that the good one, so to speak, is the one you already have.